beautiful Sabbath day, and Lord, I just thank you so much for the people who are here. Thank you that we're all here committed to serving you. And Lord, as we prepare our hearts and our minds to learn something else again, we just ask that you step in, calm our hearts, calm our minds, and help us to be like sponges and absorb information. But more importantly, Lord, help us to retain it so that we can use it. And Lord, we love you so much because you love us so much. These things I pray. Amen. All right. So I didn't really introduce myself last night. I'm going to do that now to correct my error. So my name is Lonnie Nelson. I work at Advent Source. Most of you may know that name. Advent Source, of course, supplies all of the resources for Pathfinders. I started out there 20 years ago, believe it or not. And as a resource consultant, it was a lot of fun. I got to do things like this, travel. And I still get to do that once or twice a year, which is really good. I really enjoy that. I got involved with Advent Source. I learned about Advent Source because I was asked to be a helper for one of our clubs in our local church. And then I became the director. And so that's how I learned about Advent Source. And soon after I learned about Advent Source, there was an opening, and I was desperate to get out of the job I was in because it was just simply unsafe. You ever have a job like that where you know it's unsafe? You feel threatened every day with your job? Well, that's how I felt. So I jumped on the chance to work for Advent Source, and I've been there for 20 years. I work with Adventist Church Connect, which is provided by Advent Source. It's the North American division contracts with Advent Source. They pay Advent Source to supply or provide Adventist Church Connect, which is a website platform for every church and school in North America. And so you get the website for free, and with that website comes me. I'm free too. So anyway, that's my involvement with Advent Source. If you want to email me, there's my email address. Feel free to jot that down or ask me later. I'll give it to you. So today we're going to be talking about practical communication practices. So we have entered a virtual age of communication. Would you agree with that? We do a lot of stuff virtually. There's a lot of quick access to cell phones and there's social media, there's texting, email. We don't do long handwritten letters to each other anymore. Not usually, not unless it's a special occasion. When's the last time you received a letter from a loved one other than a card? Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore. But that's the way it used to be. So we're in a virtual age. The days of face-to-face may never completely be behind us, but the use of virtual methods of communication are increasingly common. So let's talk about communication. Written and spoken for all types of communication. You need to be respectful, you need to be clear, you need to be timely, you need to be courteous, and you need to be a model. We're talking about whether it's texting, whether it's email. If somebody writes you a letter, you should respond and send a letter back. Snail mail. But you need to be respectful. Whenever you're writing to somebody, show them respect. Even if it's a quick text that you need to send, you still need to be respectful because you never know who else might see that text that you're sending. Am I right? Have you ever sent a text and realized that somebody else was standing there next to the person and they were sharing the conversation? I've been there before. That's happened to me. So we've got to be responsible about how we're texting and how we're sharing information when we're writing. All right, telephone communications via telephone. When somebody is calling, answer your phone, right? Return calls the same day. If you can't answer the call on the spot, and return it the same day. Now, we're as leaders, how many of us are working with Pathfinders specifically? And how many are adventurers specifically? 1, 2, 3 adventurers? Okay. So most of us are Pathfinder people. So how many of you are, how many of you are TLTs first? I see a few of you. All right, good. How many of you are counselors? You consider yourself a counselor? And how many of you are higher than counselor level? Couple. All right. So as counselors, sometimes you need to write letters to your parents, maybe an email to your parents. Do you guys do that? Do you email your parents, the parents of your kids? Or do you email your kids? Or text? What's that? Pull them aside. Okay, so we'll get into verbal communication, but we're going to... all right, so this gives me an idea. Good. All right, so return calls the same day. Don't eat or drink when you're talking to somebody on the phone. That's pretty rude. Don't type while talking. This happens to me occasionally when I'm on the phone. I'm a resource consultant or a help desk technician. So sometimes when people call in, they're doing other things while they're talking to me. They have their phone on speaker, and they're doing other things while they're trying to communicate with me. And I pick up on that. I know when they're really being attentive to what I'm saying and when they're not being. And they don't realize it. I'm very polite about it. I get it. We're all busy. And I'm fine with that. I kind of laugh it off. It's the way life is. But the point is, people know when you're doing other things. So when you're on a conversation, focus on the conversation. Schedule phone calls just like meetings. So if you know that you're going to be busy and somebody wants to call you, let them know. Hey, maybe when you call, could you make it after 5 o'clock today instead of earlier? I got some things going on, and that might be an interruption. So have you ever thought about how you're going to answer the phone? Or do you already know how you're going to answer the phone when somebody calls? At work, I have a set thing that I always say. But when I'm at home privately, I also have something else that I say. I always say, "This is Lonnie." That's how I answer the phone. That way they know immediately that they've got the right person or they've got the wrong person. But you can think about that ahead of time and consider that. When you're in a meeting, like in your club meeting, maybe that is a good time to turn off your cell phone, or at least put it on vibrate. Do you guys have your phones on vibrate now? Hint, hint. If you have to take a call during a meeting or during a time when you're with a group of people, maybe consider stepping away. Respect other people's rights not to hear your conversation. I was in the airport traveling here yesterday and waiting for the airline to, open the doors and start boarding us. And I was there for probably half an hour sitting there working on some stuff, listening to the people around me. And I'm a visual person. I like to see what's going on. I have a hard time focusing on things when there's people walking around and when there's other people around doing things. So I tend to watch people. And one particular guy, younger guy, was sitting in the middle of some seating areas. And it was pretty packed. There was a lot of people in there waiting for the plane. And he was on his cell phone. But he had one of those earbuds in there with the line mic in it. And he was just talking just like I'm talking to you. So there would be long pauses of silence. And then all of a sudden, he'd just say something out of the blue, and he'd have his hand gestures going. And it was kind of odd and kind of weird. But, he was oblivious to the people around him. And I feel sorry for the two guys on each side of him that were sitting there listening to that. And it wasn't it wasn't the best kind of conversation to have in public. There were some choice words that probably shouldn't have been said in public. Voicemail. When you leave voicemail, make sure that your voicemails are short, sweet, and to the point. Make sure that your information is accurate. This used to be pretty difficult for me. When I first started working in Advent Source, it got better real fast because I left a lot of voicemails. And I still do. I leave quite a few voicemails. Somebody will try to get a hold of us when we're not in the office, and we'll have to call them back from time to time. And when we call them back, well, they're not available because they're at work or something. And so we'll leave a voicemail and let them know that, hey, I realize you're having this problem. Here's a possible solution. Feel free to call me back. Here's my number, Short, sweet, to the point. They're done before I'm halfway through, and I've forgotten the last 4 digits. And I always wish they'd repeat it twice. And so I've learned. I repeat my phone number twice. So something to keep in mind when you're thinking about leaving a message. Why not repeat your phone number twice? Or start off with, hi, my name's Lonnie Nelson. My phone number is such and such. Give a message about, I know you called and such. And here's my number again at the end. That way they get it twice. So different ways of doing it. Make sure your messages, when you leave a voicemail, make sure it's positive, uplifting, and good. You don't want to be angry. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but you want to be smart about what you're saying. Lose the attitude. If something's gone bad earlier, something that's affecting your mood at the moment, make sure you check yourself beforehand. Get yourself in the right frame of mind. Mind your surroundings, like the guy in the airport didn't do. If you're leaving a voicemail mail with somebody, just make sure that people around you don't get affected by what you're saying. Did that go on? No. There we go. All right, reasons for effective communications: to provide information. That's why we communicate, right? I need to tell you something, I need to share something with you, I need to make sure you understand something. That's why I'm communicating. We want to request, we want to persuade. Or sometimes we want to document something. So, advantages: establish permanent record, documenting, for proof of agreements, encourage accuracy and logic, and it's convenient. Verbal communication is convenient, written communication is convenient. So, preparing to write. Before you create a written message, consider the following questions to help you organize your thoughts. What is my purpose? What does my reader need to know about the topic? How do I get the audience to take action? And what is the one key point I want my reader to remember? Oh, yes, okay. I just was checking to see. I was thinking I had something coming up, and I do. All right, so we're going to try an exercise here. Let's see, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, I think we've got enough. All right, so we're going to take a test. Yeah, I'm going to test you guys. We're going to do a test. So when I was a young director, I had a particular young man that when I took over as director, I was told that he was a particular problem, and they had just had an incident with him, and since I was the new director, I was the one that had to figure out how we were going to deal with it. And I didn't know much about it, and so I suggested to my counselor, the person that was involved with the situation, I said, well, why don't you write a letter, and let's write it so that you can give me an idea of what's going on. Now, this is a true story. So this is the letter that she wrote, and what I've done is I've taken out the punctuation. I tell you, that kid was pretty rotten. when it comes to kids, sometimes there's rotten kids in the bunch. And anyway, so this is a letter that she wrote, and so I've taken all the punctuation out of it. She made a mess of it. And so we worked together on it and, got it polished up, and that helped me understand where this kid was at and how he was and all that. So, but I'm going to pass this out and share this with you. Can I get a couple of you guys to help me out here? So just go ahead and hand those out. What I want you to do is go ahead and fill in any periods and commas and things like that where they need to go. I'm not so concerned about, if you want to uppercase the first letters of the proper words, that's probably good too. And then we're not going to be formal about that. I'm not going to grade you. We can grade ourselves, but everybody get one? Anybody not get one? You did not. Okay. Excellent. When you're done, if you'll just raise your hand and indicate to me that you're done, you can put it back down when you're done. Just raise it and let me know and put it back down. Anyone done? Okay, got one person done. Well, let's go ahead and start the grading process. All right. Who would like to start with the first sentence? Who would like to tell me their first sentence? Where do you have? Yeah.
He is a young man yet.
Period? Okay. No? I hear some no's. What do you have?
He is a young man, comma, yet experienced in vice to wickedness, comma, period. And then capital E after that.
Okay. What is the next sentence? Who's got the next sentence? What's that?
He is never found.
But he is never next sentence. He is iniquity, period. I feel like those would all be semicolons.
Yeah, or and. An and is healthy every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let me give you another version of this story. He is a young man yet experienced, period. In vice and wickedness he is never found, period. In opposing the works of iniquity, he takes delight. In the downfall of his neighbors, he never rejoices. Do you see what happened? You took my word that this kid was a terrible kid, and you let that allow you to skew the truth. I did that on purpose, obviously, but it proves a point. The point here is that we have to be careful of people telling us that that kid is rotten, that kid is bad, that kid is not any good. Because in my experience, yeah, they've got some problems. They tend to act out. But those are the kids that I find, believe it or not, end up being some of the best leaders later on. We've got to love them just the same as that kid that sits in his chair quietly doing the work that we've asked him to do. The kid that is the best kid, the angel kid. We've got to love all the kids just like that. That's the key. That's what we're called to do. We can't let what other people think about a child deter us from God's love flowing through us. Do you see that? All right. So anyway, that was a fun experiment. I love doing that. And you guys fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. All right. Email etiquette. Written communication is important. We do need punctuation. We do need to know how to capitalize properly, especially when we're talking with parents and sharing information with parents. We need to be able to properly give them the information, because leaving out a comma could make all the difference in the world, right? We now know that. Grammar and spelling and punctuation are very important. Be mindful of the content. Use of out-of-office rules. Alternate contacts. When you're giving some contact information, sometimes it's good to also give other ways to contact you. So when I send email to my Pathfinder group, I tend to give them my email address, my phone number, and I give them the website address so they can get on there. I try to make myself as available in just about every method as I can to them, whichever method they prefer to use. When I'm talking with my customers, the very ending of my email for my customers is my name, my work phone number, and then the methods of contact, which would be my email address, how to submit a help ticket. There's something else. The website address for the help site. So there's lots of ways that they can get help, even though I'm not right there on the phone available for them. So,
Question.
yeah.
I'm not exactly sure. Use out-of-office rules. What's that entail?
We want to be careful about, when you're in the office, you have a certain way of presenting yourself. When you're at home, you have a different way of presenting yourself. As Pathfinder people, they should be aligned. We should be using. I guess the way I'm trying to say that is we need to always be representing God no matter what. And if we are relaxed in that when we're not in Pathfinder mode, that can get back to the wrong people and send the wrong message. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, you're saying as Pathfinders, we need to be consistent because we're representing God no matter whether we're in Pathfinders or outside of Pathfinders. This lets you think there's two ways to do things, in the office and out of the office, whereas we shouldn't be that way. We should be consistent.
Well, I guess that should say don't use out-of-office rules. Yeah. But yes, you're right. We should be very consistent in how we represent ourselves in all things, especially our communication, but in all things. Yeah. Other email considerations. Not secure. When you're sending email, make sure you're sending secure stuff. Sometimes unreliable. Email sometimes can be unreliable. You should have good email habits. Think before you send. When I was younger, before email was really a big thing, teachers would always say, before you send a letter, you should write it out and set it aside. Don't ever send it until you've let it set for a day. Especially if you're sending a letter in response to something bad that's happened or you're angry about something. Let it set. That's the same thing here. Think before you send. Digitally, it's so much easier just to hit that send button and let it go. If I'm struggling with a particular difficult subject, like I have a customer that's got some issues with part of our service for whatever reason, and the hair on my neck is standing up, I'm not wanting to give him a good answer, sometimes I let it sit. I may not respond back right away. I want to sit on it and think about it and come at it again later and try and understand, okay, why did he write this to me? Why did he say it that way? What could be going on? what can I gather from his conversation that I haven't figured out yet? So I rethink his position and try and put myself in his shoes to try and figure out how can I answer it in a friendly way that makes sense, that helps him. So anyway. So let's talk about some communication styles. There's different styles of communication. Yeah, you can see that okay. Okay, so what I've done is I've categorized these by color, and I'm going to talk about the colors here. So the blue category, we're talking about that first column there. So the person that's writing in this style may want authority, challenges, prestige, freedom, varied activities, growth assignments, and opportunity for advancement. Provide direct answers, to be brief and to the point. Ask what questions, not how questions. What do you think of this? What's the problem with this? Not how can we fix this? Outline possibilities for the person to get results, solve problems, and be in charge. When in agreement, agree with facts and ideas rather than the person. So the limitations of this particular style is that it oversteps, stimulate anxiety in others, overrule people, they're blunt, they sulk when not in the limelight. They're critical and fault-finding. So the red style may want social recognition, popularity, people to talk to, freedom from control and detail, favorable working conditions, provides favorable, friendly environment, provides chances for them, provide testimonials, provide time for stimulating social activities. So what are some of the limitations? Some of the limitations under this would be more concerned with popularity than tangible results. They oversell. They act impulsively, heart over mind. They reach inconsistent conclusions. They make decisions solely on gut feelings. All right, let's talk about the green category here. May want security of the situation, time to adjust to change, appreciation, identification with the group, limited territory, and areas of specialization. It provides sincere interest to them as a person. Focus on answers to how questions to provide them with clarification. How does this work? Be patient in drawing out their goals. Present ideas or departures from the current practices in a non-threatening manner. Give them a chance to adjust. Clearly define goals, roles, or procedures, and their place in the overall plan. Style limitations, under pressure, people with strong characteristics of this style may insist on maintaining status quo, take a long time to adjust, have trouble meeting multiple deadlines, need help getting started on new, unstructured assignments, have difficulty with innovation, be content with things as they are. So autonomy, opportunity for careful planning, exact job descriptions, support ideas with accurate data, provide reassurance that no surprises will occur, provide exact job description with precise explanation of how it fits into the big picture, review recommendations to them on the schematic matter. If agreeing, be specific. If disagreeing, disagree with the facts rather than the person. Be prepared to provide explanations in a patient, persistent, diplomatic manner. Limitations. Under pressure, people with this strong characteristics of this style may seek feedback and direction from coaches. May be hesitant to act without precedent. Be bound to key procedures and methods. Get bogged down in the decision-making process. Resist diligent task or delegating task. Want full explanation before changes are made. Yield their position to avoid controversy. Avoid involvement when threatened, and focus exclusively on their own tasks and accomplishments. So, some things to keep in mind there. So, this is what I was reading. I didn't want you to have to go through all that without seeing the list there in front of you. There we go. Verbal communication. What to say is how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it that's important. Your body language says a lot more than your words in a lot of cases. Would you agree or disagree with that? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about facial expressions. Tell me about the lady on the end there. What's her facial expression? What's she feeling right now? She's happy. She's excited. She's laughing. The guy in the middle? I can't hear you guys very well. Tired? Depressed? Bored? Yeah. And the guy on this end? What's that?
Irritated, agitated.
Irritated, agitated? Huh? Focused? Defensive? I saw anger in him myself.
Concern, mostly.
Concern, yeah, possibly. Yeah. So facial expressions, what's really interesting is some of us saw something different than other people saw in some of these. Did you catch that? So some of them, like this guy on the end, we were all coming up with lots of different. I saw anger. You know, somebody saw focus. Somebody saw something else. So how we interpret the body language is also important. Listening and effective communication. It is important to be a good listener. In fact, good communication might say we should listen twice as much as we speak. That is why we have 2 ears, not 1 mouth. 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Listening is voluntary. You do not have to listen. You do so by consciously choosing to listen. As we just learned from studying the 4 personality styles, people hear and process words in their own unique way. When we listen to others, we may subconsciously let our personal tendencies hear what we want to hear. To improve our listening skills, we need to consciously apply the 4 steps involved in the listening process. The process of active listening. Step 1, hear the message. Listening is voluntary and selective. People choose to listen because they are interested in the topic. They like or respect the person speaking. You think you are listening, but are you? Have you ever listened to somebody and suddenly realized that you did not know what he or she said because your mind drifted somewhere else while you were distracted? Do you sometimes rehearse in your mind what you were going to say next instead of really listening to what the person is saying? I've done that before in the middle of a conversation. Somebody will be talking to me, and I'll hear one phrase and start thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to respond to that? You know, I've got this situation that really applies to that. And suddenly I realize that they're done talking and expecting a response, and they've said more stuff, and I'm kind of stuck. Can you repeat that again for me? Have you ever said to yourself, oh, here we go again, I've heard this all before, and just stopped listening? We are all actively listening when we feel we are actively listening when we feel frustrated, angry, or bored. Oh, are we actively listening when we feel frustrated, angry, or bored? No, we're not. Active listening requires focus. Active listening requires complete attention. Active listening requires really paying attention and everything the person is saying. Step 2, interpret the message. No two people perceive the message the same way. Speakers do not always say exactly what they mean, nor exactly what they say. Speakers send messages to listeners, both verbal and nonverbal. Both listeners and speakers have filters that help or hinder the interpreting process. Tone of voice and the body posture influence the way a message is interpreted. Internal filters influence the way we hear and interpret messages and the way we communicate. Filters are based on experience. Some filters may be based on hot buttons. Particular phrases or actions may automatically prompt us to react a certain way. We are sometimes overly sensitive to and react defensively or assertively because of an experience that the other person is going to say. An example might be bad grammar or reference to something that was an emotional hot button for you. It is important to remember that the information is conveyed by means other than words. Body language and tone of voice play as much in the message. We talk more about this. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Step 3, evaluate the message. Good listeners make sure they have all the key information before forming an opinion. Good listeners do not jump to a conclusion based on the bias or incomplete information. Do you pause to ask yourself if the information is reliable and logical? This is especially important when it involves hearsay, rumors, or gossip. Step 4, respond to the message. The listener must provide verbal and or nonverbal feedback to the speaker to communicate that he has heard and how it was heard. The listener's response informs the speaker that the message was heard and understood. When no response is given, the speaker may conclude just about anything. Defensive, overly emotional, or inappropriate responses can lead to problems. Feedback should relate to what the speaker said. Much of the message is seen and sensed. Nonverbal clues and tone of voice are very important. Some ways of influencing others include leading by example. As leaders, we need to be leading by example. Looking for the big picture and sharing the vision with others. If you're leading somebody somewhere, maybe you should tell them where you're going. Might be a good idea. We could try that once or twice. Watching your own bias. Looking, listening, and watching. Practice good communication skills. Stepping out of the box and being creative. So one of the things Yeah. Maintaining a positive attitude, consistently serving for improving yourself, working with building trust in individuals, getting others involved, giving individuals the benefit of the doubt, being proactive, and not backing down quickly when challenged. Get your message heard without damaging relationships. That's what we're talking about. Learn to flex your communication style. Choose your words carefully, listen, think, and be open. Relax your body and your face. Yeah, that's it. So, any questions? Any thoughts?
So where did you get the letter that you removed the punctuation from?
That was an exercise that somebody did. It actually never is. It's not a true story.
It feels very similar to Ellen White's style of writing, so that's what I was actually asking.
Ellen White's what?
Style of writing, it sounds very similar to some of the letters that she wrote.
Well, it's written in such a way. Yeah, I can see how you could get that, but it's written in such a way that you can put the period in various places and completely change. If you put the periods in one set of places, it makes a very negative statement. If you switch it up like we did, it makes a very positive statement. So it's written specifically to trick your mind. You have to provide the setup for it, and then the execution is automatic. But yeah, this is an exercise that was done, I want to say, back in 2008, when I was I think I was in Indiana at a convention there, leadership training there. Somebody did that. And I just thought that was really cool. And I kept my paper. And then years later, I was asked to do a presentation. I thought, I wonder if I still got that. And sure enough, it was in my files. So I pulled it out and I retyped it. And I use it every once in a while. So it gets the point across.
Can you back your slide up one?
What's that?
Can you back your slide up one?
Yeah. That one? Yeah. All right. You guys got a little bit of free time.